Thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the Political Command Center in London. Thank you very much, viewers across the planet. Thank you very much. Those waking up in America, those sleeping heavy somewhere in Australia, going to sleep, eating dinner, and those in South America with Brazil and the strikes, riots in Mexico after the arrest of El Chapo's son, burning even jet fighters are being put on fire. We want only 2 jet fighters to keep Somalia checked, but someone has burnt jet fighters, like 10 of them on the ground. Honestly, Miriam and Onyango and Wanda, God created this world in a very interesting manner. Africa needs only 10 of those jet fighters to make sure that Al-Shabaab are no more. But the people in a demonstration set fire on 10 of them. All of them. You know how much money it is? Short money. Demonstrations are all over in Mexico. Thank you very much. We come back to the United States of America. Things seem to be moving very slow, but very sure. It looks that they have a policy that they are following. We come to China. What is going on? Is there any opposition in China to President Xi? He doesn't want opposition. If you want to talk to him, he throws you out of the meeting. Why? What the world needs that way. If then we come back to Africa, our own continent. What do we need? Don't we need a redemption? An economic redemption. We need it. And that is what we are going to discuss this morning. The tough questions. Miriam will set them. I will set them. I've set them. But I want to tell you, I will shock you. I will ask very tough questions. You are looking for more money. What about the other one? Have you accounted for the other money? Our lending rates, the same. This is Dr. David Matsanga on Punchline Africa with the program, The Tough Questions. With me is Miriam Ogutu in Nairobi, the general headquarters, seated, ready to fire the questions. Joined today by one other than a new guest, Paul Onyango, an old headliner who had gone to wilderness, but has actually walked back after that wilderness because there is no other way. We either fight together or we sink together. Good morning, all of you. Then joined our youth man, the historian, soft-spoken but hard-hitting for historian Elif Wanda. Good morning, all of you. Thank you. Back to you, Miriam, in the studios in Nairobi. And you do the house cleaning, house keep up. Tell us the newspaper headlines. The redemption strategy needs to be done. There is something that has been done in the UK, which I talked yesterday, and someone has written on the newspaper headlines. You have seen that Paul, Harry, and William need redemption. The father needs to bring these 2 guys together, sit them down. The house is in chaos, disarray, totally. People are talking about childish things. This is, I know Miriam does not want even to talk about it, but this is what we have. What can we do? What can you do when they come for us? What can they do? What can they do for they come for us? Good morning, Africa. Thank you very much. There we are. We go and have our show. Ready to go, ready to hit. So many things happening in the continent of Africa. And we are here to make sure that we bring it up to the viewers across the continents and for viewers to see that we are determined. Good morning, Miriam.
Good morning to you, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our viewers, wherever you're tuned in and watching us today, the 6th of January 2023. And here are the headlines in some of the newspapers from Kenya and others from across the region. The Standard newspaper from Kenya: President makes shock revelations from plot to rope the military into political transition to hiving of Galana Kulalu, hands to individuals. Ruto bears it all in his first big interview. The story is on page 4 and 5. Ruto's top-level government retreat kicks off. You'll find that on page 6. Prince Harry says he was attacked by William. That is on page 3. And the main pictorial is the final journey of Pope Benedict. Is it the 16th? I suppose they're being carried at the St. Peter's Basilica yesterday. The Star newspaper: police killed people in container. That is what President Ruto says. Officers captured their victims and tortured them for days before execution. You'll find that on page 7. ODM gives its governors free hand to work with president. That is on page 7. KRA targets 200 companies in fresh crackdown on tax evaders. That is on page 4 and 5. The Daily Nation: Ruto's ambitious economic targets. That is the main headline. Low turnout and violence as voters pick new leaders in 4 by-elections. That is on page 10. Kalonzo: I have done enough for Raila. It is his turn to back me. That is on page 8, and that is what we have on some of the newspapers here. From Kenya, we turn our attention now to some, start with those from Uganda. Daily Monitor: soldiers raid, police release key suspects. That is the main headline. The New Vision also from Uganda: uniform fees for government-aided schools. The Punch from Nigeria: 28 governors pile up 5.8 trillion naira debt for incoming government. And then The Nation from Nigeria: presidential poll, G5 keeps PDP supporters in suspense. The Pretoria News from South Africa: Eskom load reduction policy to be challenged. And the Sowetan also from South Africa: cost of chicken soaring. Okay. The Daily News from Zimbabwe: it is time to talk teachers to government. And then Newsday also from Zimbabwe: reject ZEC report, Team Pachedu. ZEC, that is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. The Citizen from Tanzania: former NSSF head opens up on project portfolio. And that is what we have on some of the newspapers from across the continent. Back to you, Doc.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Thank you, all of you in Nairobi, Kenya. Asante sana. Thank you. Let me look for the papers, the newspapers in London. What do they say? Oh my God, too many things going on here. What do they say? The London newspaper, The Guardian, begins with the headlines: unions attack Prime Minister's plan to sack workers who break strike rules. You see, when in Africa you sack workers, the IMF comes and tells you, you have made a mistake. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International. There's a gentleman in Mombasa, Miriam, what is his name called? Haki what? That man is always in court everywhere, on everything in Africa. That is the Africa we have. Indeed, if you sack one doctor, he's on you. But here, unions attack Prime Minister, is sacking workers. Yes, who break the strike rules, who have signed an agreement to allow engagement. They didn't give us medicine. They didn't give us the railway. The buses were stopped. Everything was done badly. And you expect us to pay taxes for you to return to work. No, the Prime Minister says, haki ya Mungu, mutaenda. Voila, ndio hiyo. Things are working. So Miriam, it's something that you have got to take into account, that the strikes in London paralyzed quite a lot of things. And the viewers across the world, you'll know that the Prime Minister is correct to have stood firm to say he was sacking the striking workers who broke the rules. Ladies and gentlemen, Miriam, take it over from there. I think you have some the news from London newspapers. I have sent some to you, and then I take a call. Thank you very much. Are you there? So you discuss all this.
Okay.
If you look at, yes, go ahead.
All right, The Guardian. Let's just from where Doc had left there, just below the union's attack, PM's plan to sack workers who break strike rules. Just down there, crisis for royal family as Harry says William attacked me. And The Independent, I was physically attacked by William, claims Harry. And it's an I newspaper, I suppose. UK monarchy facing its worst crisis in 30 years. And Daily Express, reconcile, but you sold your soul, Harry. That is what we have there. And The Sun, Harry did coke and weed. And then The Mirror, it is all over. Harry claims furious William knocked him to ground in a row. We both urged Dad not to marry Camilla and give us wicked stepmom. And then I took cocaine, killed 25 Taliban and lost. All right, behind the pub. So that is, he has a book that is coming next week. So he's been promoting this book. So those are details in Harry's new book. A lot. Okay, The Daily Telegraph. Please don't marry Camilla. That is what we have there. All right, so that is what we have in some of these newspapers from the UK. Very interesting. Now I really want to read this book by Harry if I find some time, and if at all I can get it from maybe Amazon, I don't know. So we'll just get into our topic this morning. And before that, Wanda Wesonga, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Miriam.
Mm-hmm. And we're also joined by Paul Onyango. Paul, good morning. Okay.
Good morning to you, Miriam.
All right.
I'm there.
Mm-hmm. Nice to have you. It's been a while now, and a very happy New Year to you. I don't know if it's a bit too late to wish people Happy New Year, but we've not seen you for a while now, so good to have you on the show. Now, the topic that we are having this morning is Africa needs a solution from lending institutions, and for many countries from Asia to Africa to parts of Europe, China has become most important economic partner. In 2009, the country eclipsed the United States to become the biggest trade partner for African countries in aggregate. It is the largest bilateral lender for public sector loans across the African continent, and despite this large economic footprint, there is often very little information on the specifics of its lending and investments in the public domain. Now, according to a report from the Chatham House in London, China became a major creditor of many African nations from the start of the century to 2016. But since then, the scale of its lending has decreased, with the volume of new Chinese loans to African governments dropping. Africa total external debt increased more than fivefold between 2000 and 2020 to 696 billion US dollars, of which Chinese lenders accounted for 12% of that loan. Now, the economic fallout, including a sharp rise in interest rates and from the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's full-scale war on the Ukraine, has undermined the ability of many African nations, such as Djibouti, Ghana, among others, to service their sovereign debts. 22 low-income African countries are either already in debt distress or at high risk of debt distress. The overall situation is likely to worsen over 2023 and limit the ability of many African nations to raise the necessary finance both to deliver broader social improvements for their populations and respond to other things like climate change. So does Africa need a redemption from the lending institutions? With that background, Doc, I don't know if you can start us off. Maybe not. Wanda Wesonga, this is a subject that we have dealt with for the last few shows. We have been looking at the debt and perhaps ways in which Africa can get itself out of this crisis. And so is it about time perhaps we work a method of, perhaps Africa to be forgiven by these lending institutions like IMF, World Bank, from some of this debt that it is struggling to service?
Thank you so much, Miriam. Indeed, we have been talking about the African debts and way out in the sense that these debts and especially how we spend the money that we borrow has always been a question, or rather an issue that we need to be looking at. And as per now, and as per the question that you just posed, I feel like it's indeed it's time that we as Africans, or the African government, start looking at it keenly, because unless we find a solution to these, the loans, how we borrow money, where do we borrow the money, and we will keep on not growing, or rather we'll keep on walking round and round and not realizing the potentials that we have. And the other thing is that if today we ask those that have been lending us this money to imagine that we start afresh, probably to ignore or forget about the others, or probably tell us, okay, you guys, we have realized that the economy has really hit you so hard, and probably we start afresh, or we are doing a wave of a certain percent of what you guys are supposed to pay us back. I know it will be hard for these financial institutions, or our lenders that have been borrowing us money, or rather giving us money, to waive some percentage of what we're supposed to pay them back. Because on previous accounts, we have looked at Africa as probably the source of the world riches. And if Africa is perceived to be the source of the world riches, then if someone is, if you're supposed to pay someone's money, or rather you're having money that you're supposed to give back to somebody who lend you some money, then it means you are in one way or the other. Either a servant of this person, a slave of this person or an institution. And in most cases, the seniors will always want to do this so that they'll keep earning or winning from your end. Therefore, we only need to craft or to chart a way on how to find an option to this lending so that we are able to move.
Okay, very well. Now, African governments owe 3 times as much debt to private creditors in the West as they do to China. So we owe the West 3 times more than we owe to China. A report by UK-based Debt Justice released shows, using World Bank and International Monetary Fund (IMF) data, Debt Justice estimates that 35% of the continent's external debt is owed to banks, asset managers and oil traders in the West, with Chinese lenders accounting for about only 12% of this debt. What Africa owes external lenders. Of the $444 billion in debt repayments that African governments will cough up between 2022 and 2028, $156 billion or 35% will go to these private creditors, compared with $83 billion due to China. So we really are suffocating in debt, Paul Onyango. So just going back to the topic that you're having this morning, do we need a redemption from these lending institutions? Perhaps some of these debts can be forgiven. And how do you think we got here?
Yes, there's need for redemption because Africa is one of the continent where the population is growing very fast. For one, I have 2 issues to take on. One, the reason why most African countries are in serious debt crisis is because of the Cold War. Some of these debts began during the pre-Cold War season till the end. So we find that the head of states that were supporting a certain wing of Cold War, you find, especially for those who are supporting the West, in those countries, there are huge debts. Some of them are inflated to the extent that even the governments, the regimes successfully that have been undergoing servicing of the debts, that are unable to do so. Another thing, we have IMF and World Bank policies. Some of the policies they propose to the African governments, they are not really working on the ground. when it comes to implementation, it normally brings, to some extent, it's bringing stability to the government. Sometimes it's not just working completely. You can remember the economic recovery of Daniel Arap Moi just after the 1992 election. There was a dream team that was set up. At a certain point, that dream team was abandoned just after Moi had started getting resumption aid from the institutions. So, in one way or the other, even before this institution consider doing some debt relief to the African countries, I think there should be a benchmark set for them, in the sense that they will be able to be doing accountability to the resources they are obtaining from this institution. Another thing on the same issue is that the African governments, there's some kind of they normally produce certain items, maybe minerals. So these African governments need to do some value addition to some of the products they are able to produce locally, such that they don't go outside, then they come back again in another form of products that we also buy again. So that is my take.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. And I think you brought up some of the conditions that sometimes countries are given by these lenders like IMF and World Bank, and you've cited that example in the 1990s to, during Moi's government. And I think there's a loan we were given in this country, I think, was it last year, that also came with a set of conditions that really meant that President Uhuru Kenyatta at that time had to make very hard choices that would have not have sat well with Kenyans in regards to him agreeing to have this loan. But we will continue with this conversation. I see Dr. Matanga has joined us. Doc, we've started the conversation.
Yes, Miriam, you have started the conversation on a very good note. It's a clear note of where the difficulties. I can hear Onyango, I can hear Wanda. We've come to where we think time has come for us in Africa, and people in the world, and Africans in the diaspora, to ask these international agencies to allow Africa to start afresh. Because we have no journey. Miriam, don't tell me you have a journey. Which journey are you having? These are tough questions I'm asking. Which journey? Miriam, you tell me we have a future. Which one? A future with a debt that you will pay and your grandchildren pay. Is it a future? A future that as Onyango has rightly put it, the Cold War syndrome brought about a platform of anxiety and these disruptions. If you hate the West, you are Chinese, you are Russian, or you are communist. Some of these debts that African countries are paying today come as a result of mere hatred. Mere hatred. Don't give Zimbabwe money because they touched white commercial farmers. But now Zimbabwe has compensated all the white commercial farmers. Why do you still put sanctions on such a country in Africa to continue to suffer? Why? Look at Africa. Africa has got diamonds, gold, cobalt, lithium, all these commodities that are making people to fight in Congo. And by the way, Miriam, I was right. I told you there is a very big plan to get a new state in Africa. And believe me or not, that new state will come from Eastern Congo. Watch your space. If you think Matanga is a liar, watch your space. It is coming from there. The actions of some people in the region and on this peace process, and I hope Kenyatta is listening, wherever he is, or his handlers should listen and tell him, it is not a joke. It's not a simple joke that you can talk of peace talks. He is not going to come. There are people determined to hive off part of Congo to make a state. And be careful, this is going to happen. Because first of all, Miriam, look at those type of things. The fight is the minerals. Okay, can Africa sit down and say, okay, IMF, you have a problem with us, but you are the one who prints the notes, money. You know, the money we are fighting for is paper. Did you know it's just paper? Is there anything special in the US dollar? Anybody on this platform who can tell me, and if you don't give it to Miriam or Wanda, it won't move, or Matanga. If you don't give me US dollar, I will not move. If I'm going to the US, I can't go with my Kenya shillings. Are you there?
Mm-hmm.
I can't go. I can't go, Wanda, I can't go with my Kenya shillings. I'm forced. But then the paper that prints the Kenya shilling is equivalent to the paper that prints, even better than the paper that prints the dollar. Have you looked at the dollar properly? There's no special material that is used. In fact, the Kenyan new note is very well organized. But the dollar is still the same. They just, put it there. But we are fighting for it. Now, if you try to say, Miriam, I have got a state of Obugwambo, or a state of Odwa. I am now the president of the state of Odwa. And I am now from today going to use my dollar, my own money, not a dollar, my own money. If you want to buy my goods here, you buy it in my rubies. You will see how they will come for you. You will see how they will topple you. You will see how they will topple you. I've seen that. You will be toppled in the 24 hours. Gaddafi tried it. Then what killed Gaddafi was Emir saying he wants to have an African currency. Because he wanted to have an African currency because he had a lot of things going on. He had a lot of diamonds. He had a lot of gold. These are things that have killed Africa. And Africa has never been the same. Once you mention that you want to substitute a dollar and bring something else, you will not live for 1 hour. They will send you something, someone, an accident that you fell in the river and you are gone. So, why can't we agree on this? And my question comes now to the panel. Why is it that, let me rephrase it. What can Africa do What can Africa do to seek debt relief and redemption from the loans they have got? What can we do? Do we come down and kneel? A. Do we ask for forgiveness? B. Do we stubbornly cancel our debts and say we are bankrupt? C. Like a Ghana? Medium. or we collect enough of our resources And that's it. Then we make a move. Later, or none of this. The question is to you, what can we do? We are already, Miriam, I begin with you, we are already in a bad shape. And these guys will not go on. You know, look, Miriam, they say you have $900 billion. 900 billion. You are about to reach $1 trillion. They are not even giving you relief. But this is paper. This was paper. Why have, no, let me ask you, Wanda, don't you think conmanship started on these things? We are conned. Mtu alikuja na karatasi anasema this is my paper. And he, after doing that, he had colonized us. He had already picked money. He had already picked resources. He had picked cotton. He had picked copper. He had picked everything. Tuambiane ukweli. The stability of another armed Africa. There's breaking news. Another armed a military coup in Chad.
Yeah, yesterday, I think.
You see? But you didn't call me to tell me that, are you a prophet? A week ago, I think you were not on the show. One day, you remember? Yeah, Miriam was off. I told you, there is a coup. So listen to Dr. Matanga. I know what is going on. There are some Africans who underrate me. Aki ya Mungu nyenye mu underrate mimi. Mtaona. Niliwaambia Wanda on the show. We can play back on the show that there is a military coup and that is coming in Chad. So nyenye mnafikiri mimi Matanga is just the one you can insult on Facebook. No way. Muangalie mimi mzuri. Kwanza, I know what is going on. The military in Africa is becoming apprehensive. And be careful. It is not going to be rosy in 2023. And the reason is why I'm talking much about Africa and I'm saying, please, let's kneel down and ask for these dates to go. People are becoming apprehensive. You can't tell people who have not eaten last night, you tell them good drama and you are in a big, you are driving a helicopter going to the moon. You know, there are people who are making even their missile to go to the moon. When I am hungry, people are getting hungry in Africa. And maybe it is Matanga going to save people by asking international agencies. Nobody is talking. Wamutata is now gone into Senate. He can't talk. The only Wamutata left on the world scene is Matanga. And I'm going to ask the international community. I'm going to write to the World Bank. I'm going to write. You know, you can write and the people, Miriam, people underrate you. We can make these shows and the people underrate us. But in actual sense, these letters go on record. When the man puts it outside, 2022, this man told us to do a redemption strategy for African countries. Most African countries in this year are going to be in a very precarious position. We either move very fast and seek redemption. Ask this international community, the Chinese, that you have built the railway. Fine, bring some of your population. We give you a tribe called Chinese tribe somewhere in northeastern. Sindio, the China's, what kills China is the population. Instead of you telling us to pay back, we might not be able to pay back. lakini mulete watu wa China. This is a God's world while they live in Karamoja, which is my country. I don't want to speak about your country. You yourselves will speak about it. But for me, Matanga, my tongue is sealed. Okay? We can bring some Karamojongs and then ask Karamojongs to live with Chinese. Do you know that, Miriam, by the way, do you know that this is going to happen? If we don't pay these people things, they will come and they will live with us. Wewe kama ulipe pesa, si ndio the owner of the money anasema haya, hiyo nyumba tutakaa pamoja na wewe mpaka unilipe. This is going to happen. So we must now begin cultivating ways, means of saying, forgive us, stop it, cancel this, let's begin afresh. And from today onwards, there will be no monkey business. Unless that is done, I see what we call Armageddon. Have I used the correct word? Armageddon. Political Armageddon. That's my summary, Miriam. The question was to you.
What was the question again?
I have lost you. The question was, what can we do? What can African countries do, given that we have nothing else left? We are increasing debt on top of debt and debt on top of another. We are borrowing to service the other. What can we do now that we are not able, instead of going the Ghanaian way of being declared bankrupt? That means every Ghanaian arriving at an airport must surrender must surrender something, or buildings. What can we do before that situation reaches?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I hear you, and I think you'd given the options perhaps, and one of them was, do we just cancel and decide we are not going to pay? But I don't think we can do that, because we already committed to the services and conditions and the terms and conditions of these loans and these debts that now we are obligated to pay. And for us to sit well within the international system, then we have to do our part, and we have to respect our obligation, and we have to find a way to service this debt. So deciding that you're not going to pay that debt, that is not an option. It has to be paid. And if there are difficulties, like we've seen a lot of countries in the continent are facing difficulties in servicing these debts, then perhaps the other option that is logical will be to have a debt restructuring. Perhaps we have conversations with these lending institutions and see how we can restructure servicing some of these loans, because in the immediate time it is proving to be a bit challenging because of the challenges that has brought about by COVID-19, the war in Ukraine, and other factors that have really contributed to placing some of these countries in the position that they are having. They find themselves today, and the financial difficulties, and also the economic meltdown that really has been experienced worldwide. The last time we were having this conversation, I think we talked about the issue of responsible lending and borrowing. I think this is something that our governments must now start considering before they decide on going out there to borrow more debts. Then they must sit down within as a government and see, are there other options that perhaps we can explore to see that we are able to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve here, but without really borrowing? Are there things that we can cut down on in as far as our spending in as a country, things that are unnecessary, so that we are able to work within and live within our means, as a country? So we have to exercise responsible, borrowing, so that we just don't borrow because IMF is willing to give us money. At the end of the day, this is a burden that a country now has to take care of. So we must think about this and see, are we borrowing? And if we are borrowing, is it really necessary for us to borrow? Are there other means that we could use to do the same thing and get the same money without having to incur all this debt? So we have to think about that, our responsible borrowing as a country. But I think for right now, the most I think if we can plead with these institutions to forgive us some of these debts, I think that will be a great thing. I think there are countries that have been forgiven some of these debts, but not entirely. But I think debt restructuring could be the immediate recourse for right now. But it is a debt that you've taken. It is a debt that we must pay.
Medium's view is on the question, which is still tough question. What do we do? Do we just duck and disappear? Medium says no. We are already in it, and there is no jumping in the ship. We must find ways, and she has suggested very many. Let me hear from many other ways which you have heard. I don't need to repeat most of them, but restructure that and come back and have responsible lending and borrowing. We are not teaching our people manners. We are teaching people manners of bad behavior. And that one, in each country in the world, you will find it. So, Wanda, what is your view?
Exactly as Miriam is putting it, that we are already in it and we cannot just walk out from it unless we find a way out. The other day I was happy when Zimbabwe decided now to get hold of their lithium and sell it on their own terms. And I wish that we now use what we have to rebargain or to renegotiate the terms of payment. In most cases, a person will give you a loan, or a person will want you to be indebted to them so that you are you're in captivity, so that you are a slave to them. When you look into the part of the reasons why Gaddafi ended up being killed, part of it is that he wanted to establish the African Bank so that we have a solution or an option to some of the money that we are borrowing from outside there. And in so doing, he was killed. And therefore, if we imagine that the World Bank and these lenders will forgive us and say, let us chart a new way, let us start afresh. If we ask them to forgive us, they will be unhooking us. And it means we'll now pick a line that we want. We'll either work with them or we'll either not work with them. And of which probably it's very hard for them to imagine that they will forgive us, they will forget about the loans, then we start afresh. Probably, I'll suggest that the loan still stands, but we use what we have to bargain the new terms. Africa is perceived to be the source of the world riches. The technologies, the IT, the information communication technology majorly relies on Africans' riches, natural riches. If I'm told we'll get hold of it, then have new terms of how much are we going to sell these products, these minerals at, then it means whoever, this loan, the loaner will now want to have a sitting with us, then we'll discuss. Like, we have decided to hold on the cobalt, we have decided to hold on the lithium, we have decided to hold on quite a number of these of our minerals. Then it means the ICT will be as well held in captivity. It will not be moving. And therefore, if we hold on what we have and probably want to sell it at a different price, probably higher than what we are selling them, or probably make it a bit expensive, then, as a way of servicing the loans, chances are whoever we are servicing these loans to will want us to have a sitting. Probably he or she will be the one that will now say, okay, I've forgiven you, let us start afresh. Therefore, let us use what we are having that is so precious to them, make it very expensive. Then on so doing, they'll have a sitting with us. The other one will now call us on the table, then start talking about it. But if we make these minerals cheaper for them to get them, they will still use the loans as a way out of making us, slaves to them. Therefore, let us make it expensive, use it to negotiate now. Dr. Masanga.
Now, okay. So you are also in agreement with Miriam. Okay, I might be the odd man out. Let's hear from Paul Onyango. The same question.
For me, I have a different view. If we look at the history of Africa, yes, we have the minerals or the resources for some of the most precious minerals. One big challenge the African governments have is the companies that do the extraction are not our own. They are for foreigners. They will dictate terms and conditions. So when we are talking about we hold our own, even if you have your own thing, you don't have the capacity to extract it. It will not help you. So the person who has the technology and everything else will come and extract it at his own terms. So we are not yet there, very, very far. If you look at the French Francophone in Africa, they hold their reserves in Federal Bank of Paris. So how do they negotiate if all the reserves for trade and everything is elsewhere in another continent? Which means we are too far. Okay, when you look at the African governments themselves, we as South Africans, the money that is stolen is kept in European countries. Property is bought there. Surely, are we doing service to our own people? Some things we need ourselves to redeem ourselves even before we redeem the country. We need to redeem our behaviors, because we cannot move anywhere, because there are certain basic things that must start with us as a people before we move to the next thing. Another thing, we have not done full exploitation in terms of education. In some countries, like for example in Congo, that country has been ravaged with a lot of war for a long time. People cannot go to education, cannot get proper education, because institutions never have full time to do the education activities, merely because maybe the period is short when people are fighting. Very few people can attain good education such that they can change the environment, or they can acquire the expertise that they require that can make the economy be driven. That's my take.
So, lastly, two people agree. We remain in and seek, continue paying, modify our systems for collection of resources, money, wipe out corruption. Show me one African country that is ready to wipe to. I'm now asking another question, which is a tough question. And I disagree. I am totally against what Miriam and Mr. Wanda have put forward, so we can now exchange fire. A friendly fire, not the real fire. Now, Miriam, show me one African country, and I intend to agree with Onyango on one aspect, which is ready to put people on firing squad for corruption.
Well, then we have ourselves to blame. We can't play victim and also want help at the same time. We have to decide. So unless we get our house in order and we do what is necessary and we copy examples like those of Singapore and all this, then we will continue being in the state that we are in. And we have ourselves to blame for all these problems that are facing us, including these debts, that some of which, even if you go and really take an accountant and look through what were they able to achieve, or were they even necessary, you'll find that they can't even be accounted for. So we have ourselves to blame. So unless we really get a hold of ourselves and our economies and really start fighting corruption and things like that, then we shall continue being in trouble, and we shall continue borrowing, and we must pay. Once we borrow, we must pay. And that's it.
Then it's going to be very difficult. Don't you see?
Yeah, unless we are willing to change.
Yeah, there are so many countries on the continent that are not going to pay. There are very many. In fact, the trend that started with Ghana, the very many countries are going to say, Allah, hapana, hakuna pesa, you go away. So, until we change, and Miriam, you brought a very serious question and argument to balance it. You are right. Where are we? Where are we as far as fighting corruption is concerned? Where are we? Right from the top, Morocco, Nigeria, which is worse. Worse. You look at the leaders who are seeking election in Nigeria. My God, they are all dirty. They are all dirty. There is, honestly, they have amassed wealth. If you look at the bank accounts in Citibank of Mr. Atiku and others, if I don't want to produce the document here, on Africa, trust me, people, I always do my homework. Atiku should not even stand for president. But here we are. We have Atiku, we have Tinubu. These are leaders coming to lead us tomorrow. But we have alone, Nigeria struggles to, actually Nigeria should be the one lending people money, because it has a lot of facilities that makes more money. The population is a facility. If you have a population that is consuming Kimbo, are you hearing me, Mr. Wanda? Kimbo, margarine, and you are eating, 220 million people are eating margarine, one can, buying it for 1 naira. 1 naira. If each household in Nigeria buys a can a day, that is 220 million naira in a day. If each can buys Kimbo household in Uganda, that is 42 million. 42 million Uganda shillings per day. Just to buy one item. If we move to buy polish, shoe polish, if we want to buy essential commodity, that each bag, each house buys 1 kilo of sugar in a day in Uganda, how much money do we make? Okay, in economics, what do we do with this money? We have squandered it. The corruption has taken all the money that we have. There is no African country, and I still want to submit, the tough question remains, which African country will start shooting corrupt people who take the money, like Singapore, put people on firing squad, and today Singapore is corrupt-free country in Africa. Wanda, show me one.
I know it is a very tough question indeed. Indeed, very tough in the sense that the very first person that will be shot, they are the sons, daughters of these big politicians, and the very politicians will be on the line of being shot. But probably, because that one...
Wanda, hold the line. Have you ever corrupted anybody in Kenya?
I have not seen.
No. Be honest. You know, Mungu anaangalia juu huko.
Yes. Yes.
William, can you look at Wanda's eyes and as he speaks? Have you ever corrupted anybody anywhere, or you are stopped? A policeman is asking you to get out of the car. Have you ever come out of that matatu and pleaded with the policeman because you are looked at as a smart guy, a lecturer from Egerton University of history, get out. Then you go to the policeman and say, bana, buze, to watch. Corruption is not exchanging money only.
Yeah, sure.
Corruption also means patronage, influence. Patronize the policeman. He says, get out of this car, it is gonna kill you, it has no tires. You say, no, we are going for a burial in Kitale. Haven't you ever talked to a policeman in a roadblock? Just admit that you might have been very corrupt, unknowingly.
The Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission will come for me.
No, because the biggest question the tough question that we have, Miriam, is which African country can start shooting corrupt people on firing squad so as to equate itself to the standards of Singapore? Is there one? Wanda?
So far, we don't have one. Because as I earlier said, that the major persons or the key problem, in as much as corruption has gone to the level of the common persons down there, those that are selling maize, those that are selling sweets on streets, hawking the sweets, that the very key perpetrators, the promoters of corruption, start from the highest office in our countries. And if we allow corruptions from the highest office, then it means that persons that are going to be the first in the line of being punished, being shot, they are the sons and daughters of the senior persons of the country. And at times,
I was trying to safeguard you to not go that route.
Because unless then...
that's why I was asking you, Wanda, have you ever yourself, and you have said, the anti-corruption guys will be asking, coming for you. So please also avoid that route.
So Wanda should recuse himself from this corruption conversation, I think. If he's then you should recuse yourself from this corruption conversation if you can't come out clearly.
No, because you are not. I'm not saying he's recuse himself from it. That you are going to shoot the daughters and the sons of the big people, but you yourself, somewhere in the village.
Doc, it is our value. It is our value system, and I think there's something we talk about here, the social contract and how we've been socialized. When you look at countries like Japan, did you see the way they were behaving during the World Cup? They would clear their rooms and the stands, the fans, and people. The rest of the world was shocked. South Koreans, they are like that. China, they are like that. They've been socialized in a certain way, and now Singapore and other countries that we could really look at and see, how can we borrow some of this? I think it is in our value system. So we are raised thinking and socialized knowing that you can always bribe yourself out of a situation instead of just doing the right thing. I've never bribed. I'd rather go to the police station, come get me out of there. I'm not giving you anything. That's cut my water, cut my electricity if I'm late with my payments. I'm not giving you anything. That's how I live my life. But people have been socialized differently.
Thank you. I think now the debate is very clear. One day you see where we are. You say, no, I don't want. Take me. Take me. I'm telling you frankly here today. Someone who made a mistake. Now, maybe I want to be very frank here. In 2011, somebody made a mistake on one of my properties. I had paid all the money in full. But nobody entered that money. And there was a balance of 4,600 pounds. Listen, this is a true story. 2012, between there, everything cleared, the rates, I don't have any problem, I'm clear. My title is with me, I'm clear. Then somebody in 2023 comes to you that there is something that was left. How many years are those from 2011 to 2023? How many years?
12 years.
About 12 years. So, you mean the bank did not have audit? Are there auditors in the bank? Do they audit the books? Are there credit controllers? Are there risk assessment officers? How did they fail to know that mistake, which they should notify? And where is the notification? Where was it? You are now coming in 2023 and I say, oh, there was that small balance of this much. But now, compared with the loss, we shall add there a penalty. I said, which penalty for me? Who should penalize the other? Me? Are you hearing me, Wanda? Who is penalized? Me or you? Should I ask for penalty? You are penalizing me for your mistake. Watch it when they put it. Let each one explain to the judge in front. You know. Wacha nikwambie Wanda Ndawanyangu. In this world, Miriam, you are right. Unataka kukata my electricity, twende. Lakini mimi siwezi kukufinya nyuma nikupatie kitu unipatie. I give you out of my will. So we go to court. We lay the case. The judge says, now whose problem is this? Is there a problem here? Whose? Surely, is it the bank? Is it you? Sir, do you have all your papers? Yes. Did you pay everything? Yes. Do you have anybody who has put a paper? You know that, like when you have you put your bank, your title in the bank? No, I've never asked for any money from the bank on my title. Not even a penny, I haven't. So he looked and said, what is the problem then? Come in January, we shall have to make a decision. The bank said, oh, no, oh, this, no. The judge said, no, we shall look into it. Let's see. The man has no problem with you. We can't tell him to return. How are we going to force him to return his title? Where will you get it? That he have a problem with you? No. Why didn't you take 12 years? Not to detect the problem. Naona. I was recently at a hotel and I wanted to eat. We were eating. A friend of mine called me to have quick food. So we looked at the receipts. Miriam, have you seen the receipts that I brought? This is Africa. On this receipt, on this bill, when it's brought, there is what we call service charge. Wanda, the Paul, and the Miriam, you all have been to these hotels. There is a service charge. Now, this service charge is supposed to be for the waitress and the waiters. Waiters are supposed to be given that money. And there is another tax added on the bill. A tip. It is there. That's why when you eat, you drink one bottle of beer in some hotel I'm not going to mention names of the hotels and then kill their business. That's why Wanda and Paul will always go to River Road and Matanga and myself, we know, and it is cheaper to drink it in than to drink it in Upper Hill. Because the moment you step in that premises, Wanda, you have gone to hell. If you don't have 1,000 bob in the pocket, Miriam, you can't drink coffee. I'm now warning you in advance. You can't drink coffee in one of the 5-star hotels in Nairobi. Because there are so many taxes on the receipt. This is all coming back to correction of our system. So where does our money go? Which could build? Why should a waiter or a waitress finally? So with my friend, I am always one of the few people who is very generous. I was taking out my pound. I wanted to give £5 to the black waiter who had come to me. My friend told me, Mr. put back that money. I said, what? He said, put back the money. Have you looked at the receipt? We have already paid the waiter. And the waiter, the charges they have taken us included on the food, because the meat, we ate for 60 pounds lunch, 60 pounds each. 60 pounds. You see, 100 times 150 is 9,000 bob. About 9,000 pounds, shillings, Kenya shillings. So we ate 60 pounds each. That is food only. And then my friend was hammering the most expensive wine. I hammered water, which was the most expensive water also. It came to about 140 pounds. So I was trying to say that this boy has been so good. He told us he's from Bahamas. He's here for his master's degree. Where? Let's give him a tip. My friend told me, no, let's go with our 5,000 pounds. I looked at him, then we reached the train station. I saw his sense. When we had been given the bill. So in the train, when we sat, we started calculating. He said, okay, if there are 1,000 customers who pass here and they pay this percentage, how much does the hotel owner make? Plenty of money. Okay, in Africa. That is now in Britain. But in Africa, who collects this surcharge? Service charge, not surcharge, service charge. Miriam, is there any manager in Africa who pays this white waitress that money?
It's never included in the bill.
Oh, there you are. Onyango. Onyango. Is there an African country?
Yes.
An African country that can shoot on firing squad anybody who touches money?
There is none. Maybe the services of a dictator can work.
Is Kagame's service better?
I think he's applying both soft and hard power.
Soft and hard power. Yeah, thank you very much. I was looking for that. But I want to shock you. All of you on the panel, you say there is none. There is. Can I name the country?
Which one?
Can I name the country where corruption has been fought without firing squad? Should I name you? On African continent, there are two countries.
Mauritius or which one?
Thank you very much, Miriam. Mauritius. Mauritius. No, if you want your safety of your money, go to Mauritius. The island are in Indian Ocean. Beautiful island with beautiful men and women. Once you arrive at that island and you are ugly, you might think that God was not happy with you. Miriam, that's the truth. If you reach Mauritius, and you look in the mirror and look at yourself, it is not an island where you can fly, where you have doubts of yourself. It's an island where you have to fly when you are confident. When you reach there, Allah, even there, I swear, if you try to bribe a waiter, you know, Miriam, these hotels, big hotels, there's concierge. Those men with kofia who stand outside there. Kama anaonekana anatoa kitu kutoka kwako, kazi inaisha.
The concierge.
So how did Mauritius do it? If you want to give a tip that your money is paining you in the pocket, there is a box there, and they have fixed a box there, and they have written on the door, on that box near the hotel in the lobby, tip box in French and English. It is there, big one, with a big padlock. So if you have a problem yourself, you go and drop that money. It's paining you not to go with it, to take it to Kitale, or to take it to Siaya like Mr. Paul Onyango. So these are some of the countries and the sessions, upper sessions, Jude up near Tanzania, Seychelles. But Seychelles, there are few of them, they don't want any corruption. So that is why their president, the former president, has been sentenced. You saw how many years? Because of corruption, he tried and he broke the law. He's in jail as we speak now. He appealed and his sentence was reduced, but still he was not acquitted. So for Africa to start defending using a redemption strategy, we need people, governments that can stand firm and say no. And we need to calculate what Miriam talked about, social contract. We don't have a social contract at all. Chinese, South Koreans were cleaning their hotel. You remember? You are the one who said in Qatar, they were cleaning their hotel. You saw.
They were cleaning the locker rooms and the stadium where they had seated. They made sure they cleaned that place.
They leave it. Miriam, can I shock you? In 1981, we went with Dr. Milton Obote to North Korea. And we went to the restaurant down when the president was in the palace. We said, let's go down and eat and drink this wine with snake wine. You know, when we are younger people, we try everything. Snake wine, very nice. Yeah? There's a snake that has been removed, the poison, and that is inside the bottle. So unamwaga namna hivi. So we went to one of the restaurants there. We were arrested. After drinking the glasses, we didn't know the regulations say, you drink, you remove the glasses, take them to the counter. There is a machine there. If you have used the plate, you put in the, you put in the plate and then press the button. The plates are washed. You leave them being washed. Somebody will take it. Clean the table, put back the cutlery. Sisi, tulitoka Afrika, tunaamuka, tunaenda. We saw somebody calling us thinking we have, left something behind. He said, three, all of you, come back. Inside, within a few minutes, about 2 minutes, police was on the door. Saying these guys left the table. Luckily enough, at that time, some of us had diplomatic passports, and you can't do anything to a diplomat. We showed our diplomatic passport, but this now English is the problem. We have to find the English interpreter. The restaurant woman could say, I'm all right, I'm wrong. And then, yes, wrong. So we said, I told my friends, what is the problem here? Give us the plates. Let's wash them. We put them there, they cleaned the table. Then they said, the policeman said, it's all right, even saluted us. He asked us, where are you going? Do you have transport? We said, no, we shall walk back to the hotel across there. They have a social contract. And what Onyango said, the soft hard power and hard power, I think works in North Korea.
No.
But in North Korea, unfortunately, it's only hard power.
There's only hard power. And also the former president of South Korea, who is now serving term because of corruption-related cases. And when you look at that case, it's not her who really committed that crime. It is a friend, somebody close to her, who used her proximity to the president to look for favor and all that. So until you're able to really get our act in order, we must pay these debts. We have to pay these debts until we are able to act right and have a social contract.
You have still stuck on paying the debt.
Daktari, wanachukua, wanaiba, wanafanya corruption, tunataka forgiveness. No.
Like our Africa, do you think they are going to pay this debt?
Well, they'll have to answer.
China
will take over their countries then.
I see the situation where most African countries are going to rebel.
And do what?
Rebel
and go where?
And go to BRICS. BRICS.
Yeah, BRICS is only 5 countries.
Yes, they will allow those rebels. We are trying to break IMF, surely. We want to go to BRICS. Me, I am of the opinion that we some countries default. Because this money is only paper money. BRICS can print us the paper money in which we can trade in. Allah? When you say that Ramaphosa is in chaos because he's joining BRICS, they have even cut. Miriam, I read something yesterday, Onyango and Miriam. Zambezi River is drying up.
It is. It's climatic conditions, climate change.
It's very sad. That is a topic, Miriam, we should look at next week. The environment, the Zambezi River is drying up. It is sad. Surely it is very sad that we are doing something wrong. I think we in the Nile is lucky that there is a reservoir of Lake Victoria. But even the Nile, if that dam up there in Ethiopia is built, then we have a problem. And then if the dam in DRC Congo, which Egypt is building, could take some of our water. You remember our water is on top of the mountain. Uganda is on top, up. You know, when some people think you are going to Uganda, no, Uganda is up. From Mombasa to Lake Victoria is over 11,000 feet above sea level. So me, I suspect this dam that Egypt is trying to build in North Congo to draw that water to take it to Egypt, this could lead us to some chaotic situation. So I think next week we better look at those possibilities and talk about them. Miriam, we have a few minutes left. We have tackled the funding, the redemption. Is it necessary? Any other you have? Let's do one last question, which you had, then we can move on and call it a day. You had a question.
Did I?
Or if you didn't have, I have.
Okay, go ahead.
I will start with Onyango.
Yes.
No, the answers will come from you first, then Wanda, then Miriam. Africa is looking at a terrible future. Riots, food prices are high, liquidity is becoming scarce, fuel prices are high. What do you think Africa can do right now, especially oil-producing countries on the African continent? Is it time for them to put their efforts together, get one refinery that can refine? Especially you people in Kenya, you used to have a refinery. I don't know what has happened to that refinery, Miriam. Was it closed? What has gone wrong with this refinery? And more so, are we still producing? Is your crude oil still going? I don't see the trucks. Are the trucks stopped going, or what happened?
The one that went to Japan never came back, so I don't know.
The what?
The one that went to Japan for refining never came back, so we don't know what happened.
Oh my God.
The first batch.
So what do you think Africa can do in the face of our image has been dented? We are being called the Gonya Gonya of the world. Everywhere you say, when you say from Africa, you say, there you are, he has come again. You know, when that thing of he has come again is labeled on you, it's really very painful. So this Gonya Gonya style is not very good. What do you think we can do to get out of the Gonya Gonya style, the style of begging, the style of riots are coming, food prices are high, fuel prices are high. We are muddled up with what we don't know. But America, surprisingly, shocked me. And this is a double question. I've asked you one already. Miriam, have you seen that American government has reinstated Mr. Johnny Carson as a point man for all African affairs? Are we safe? It was a tough question too. Are we safe with Johnny Carson? Given that Johnny Carson advocates together with George Soros as regime changers, is African continent safe? Onyango.
What I can say that African governments should look for homegrown solutions in the first place. In the case they are getting challenges is when they can look for another option B if it's not available. But one thing I would say with the African governments is that we should make good use of our growing population. We should make sure that the budgetary that they allocate each and every year targets the growing population, investment on the population, how we can develop resources, how we can develop food production such that we can secure food security. Another thing, because Africa, we have different regions of climatic conditions. There are areas with the dry, there are areas with the wet season, there are areas that have a mix of both. So in early years, before colonial, during colonial and before colonial, we used to have what is called barter trade. I think African governments need to trade among themselves. And they reduce this thing they call trade barriers, such that it will be cheaper to trade than look for goods that you need to import and pay many other things. When you trade across the border, it will reduce the cost of doing importation, the cost of doing business. Those are some of the things that the African countries can do nearby to reduce this expense of importing goods from very far distance that will cost them a lot. Another thing, when we look at our culture as Africans, we say then when you see a neighbor's house is on fire, you provide an assistance. Okay, like our neighbors in Sudan and also in the Congo, we find that certain areas where there are conflicts. If we can find a way of talking to our neighbors, we assist them in handling the conflicts. Some of these challenges that we find, some of them they continue to persist simply because there are serious conflicts of governance, whereby there's complete breakdown of governance. I think Ethiopia have managed their course of peace negotiations. Now things are getting back to normal. If we can take that route, at least the burden that the African population are getting in terms of how to go about their business, how to get food, how to go to school, how to do ABCD. These are some of the things that we can help ourselves and able to manage our economy. The oil-producing countries, oil is a very, very important commodity in business or in economy. There are countries that produce oil. There are those that don't produce oil. Those countries that belong to, there's only one problem with the oil industry. The countries that are called oil producing, they belong to a particular body called OPEC. So I think the OPEC restrictions could even make the countries in Africa that produce oil not be able to do certain things that maybe that would favor the African continent. So that is my take.
Onyango, you have introduced something called barter trade. Very important aspect. Yes. We go back to barter trade without using the dollar.
Yes.
We use quantity and eyes, not quality. Eyes, quantity. You say that cow is equivalent to 4 goats. Yes.
Or maize.
So it's sad that we have to come back to those areas. You are very right. There is no shortcut here. We have got to come back on that. Barter trade, maybe it will lessen dependency on a dollar, which hikes itself and lowers itself at will. Wanda, thank you very much, Paul, for the barter trade issue. Wanda?
I think some of the challenges that Africa is facing today is because of poor character development. That the kind of characters that we have in Africa, they are characters that are defined on building an individual at the expense of the other person. if we get to a position that we first address the character building from this, from a very low level to a very senior level, that we start building persons whose character is a defined character that is aimed at building the society, not at the expense of the other person, not at the expense of a different country, but a character that is based on building the entire continent, building all persons. Then we will be in a position to grow what we have. That we will not end up destroying what we have, will not end up looking at outside, but chances are we'll now start looking at this one is ours, let us grow with it. Like the other day during the COVID, that is 2020, we saw what happened in quite a number of African borders, that we carelessly ended up destroying what we had. Just because based on the character building, we have molded up people that cares less what is happening to their neighbors, what is happening to the other country, and so on and so forth. And therefore, if number one, we end up building the characters in Africa, then we'll end up molding people that will be able to hold together and grow as a persons. Because number one, we talk about the arable lands in Africa. Then we go ahead and import agricultural produce from outside Africa. We have neighboring countries that have in plenty, but we ignore that which is in the neighboring country and go outside. And in so doing, the liquidity, the cash flow ends up being very little, which in this case, it is it is our own making. Therefore, number one, I wish that in our education settings, we start looking into how do we mold characters. Number two, in molding characters, I wish that all our education sectors cut across in Africa introduces what is called Pan-Africanism as a topic, so that we end up building Pan-Africanists that will want to grow Africa in general. The other thing that we need to be so keen at is the climate change. That we cannot be talking, we keep bragging and talking good about the climate in Africa, but now we are losing it. If I'm told rivers like Zambezi are now drying up, then it means we are losing it. Therefore, if we collectively start talking about climate change and not just talk about it, but put it into action, then it means we will end up promoting agriculture. If we promote agriculture, we'll end up promoting manufacturing. And if manufacturing is promoted, the cost of life will automatically start going down. Then we'll be able now to utilize these the other sectors. The other things that we're supposed to be looking at as Africans, then probably these will be able to sort a number of our issues. Let us not just have the regional regroupings, economic regroupings, just for the sake of them being there. If we're having SADC, then let SADC work based on its vision, objectives, and have the region grow. But let us not have SADC where people are still having some mindset of we are in SADC, but our quota is powerful or my country is powerful in SADC. But let them grow the whole SADC. Let us look at East African community. Then we don't have either Kenya looking at it as a powerful nation, either Uganda looking at herself as a powerful nation, Tanzania and the other nation, but instead the region looks at what it's capable of doing, then grow itself as a region. The same thing happening going on to happen in areas like ECOWAS and all the regional economic groupings in Africa. So that if we collectively now, in our own simple ways or small ways, identify what we are good at, then grow with it, then it means when we put together in one basket of Africa, then we'll be, at least in one way or the other, would have sorted the challenge that we are having. Therefore, in listing, let us promote Pan-Africanism from our schools. in so doing, we end up building the character, molding characters that will look at every person as one person, then grow the whole continent collectively. Number two, let us talk about climate change. If I'm told we want to utilize the natural riches that we are having, like the arable lands, if not for failure too, then we'll end up talking about it as a song, but it will never help us. Let us equally invest in exploiting what we have. If I'm told we are having the oil and we want to mine the oil, then let us invest in it. If I'm told we are having several mines and we don't have the capacity to mine them, then let us exploit. Let us invest in them and exploit. The very riches that we're having, rather than 100 plus years we are still depending on the West to come and do the mining. Then it means we are not equal to the task. It means we don't know what we have and we are not ready to grow. Therefore, I feel like we are capable of doing these things, but we only need to start doing things the right way. If it means changing to the better. Dr. Masango.
Yeah, thank you very much. Comrade Wanda, you brought up something growing block by block. That is integration of Africa block by block, which was a very, very good thing that I admire, that we grow block by block in Africa to make a better Africa. But what shall we do when they come for us is what the question remains, a tough answer. Question, what if IMF comes to collect their money, shall we run like Ghana? How many countries in Africa will be blacklisted? Those are the questions that Africa, on this shore where I am today, should answer. Africans should answer those questions. Miriam, in Nairobi, Kenya, what do you think can, what is your final end game?
Yeah.
And I gave you the questions.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about a lot of important things today on this show that perhaps we really need to relook at. And I hear you, Wanda, when you're saying perhaps it's about time that our countries here in the continent, we start teaching Pan-Africanism. So I don't know if we are teaching Pan-Africanism. Is there a value system that we're going to attach to that, or we're just going to teach that we're Africans and we're black and Africa is our business, and what is that supposed to look like for every country? Is there something that we intend to inculcate? Is there some values? What is the end goal? What is our vision with this? But I do understand where you're coming from, because from what we see, even in how we consume the products that we consume, the services that we consume. If I go to a supermarket, there's a supermarket I like going to, a store, specifically to get certain products. I know if I get a lotion, when I go there, I'll get a lotion that will perhaps from Europe or these other countries that I know they are good qualities. And sometimes what you get that has been locally manufactured here is not the standard perhaps you're looking for. So as we look at this Pan-Africanism, can we also start looking at, do we teach our people to be excellent in what we do? Can we be able to produce and to engage in a way that we have a standard that we have set? Look at the European Union. It started with, I think, about 5 countries, and before you know it, now it has about 27 members. They have values. They're not just together because they're white people and a few black others who are living within them. It is not their race that has brought them together. It is a set of values, and they have a vision, and they know what they want to achieve as a bloc, and they have been very successful. It's one of the most successful blocs we have across the world, and they speak with one voice, and they have one currency, and they each country respects these traditions and these and these laws and rules and regulations and norms that have been set, and so they operate within. If you were in one country, the same thing, the same standard, the same level, the same everything you're going to get in the next European country. So we have to really look at our own system, even as we push for this Pan-African agenda. What is the agenda? What is the agenda? What is pushing this agenda? What do we want to achieve as a continent? What is the vision we have for our people? And I think we've lost it. We've lost it, and that is why it's very difficult. The ECOWAS was talking about having one currency, ECO. I think they had a deadline for, I don't know what year, that did not happen. Do you know, as African community, we had a deadline for this year to have our own currency. That cannot happen. So until you're able to know what it is that we want and what is driving us and the vision that we have, so we will continue getting lost within this international system, because I've said here before and I'll keep repeating, this system has been set up in a way that we continue being the way we are. So until we open our eyes as Africans and decide enough is enough, we want to charter a new road and we have a new vision for ourselves, then we will continue begging. We will continue hallowing in poverty and debt, because it serves well. Our international system, they have a hierarchical system. We have the first world, we have the middle class countries and all that. It is set like that because the food chain needs to work for the international system to work. So if you're waiting for these people to come and save us from ourselves and make it better for us, that will never happen, because it has been set in a way that we will continue being the way we are. Doc, you brought up the issue of Johnny Carson, and if at all, him being appointed. I think he was appointed as a special representative for the U.S. Africa Leader Summit implementation, and what that will mean as far as the relations with the U.S. and Africa is concerned. The U.S. foreign policy on Africa is the same, regardless if it's Carson or anybody else who's been appointed in that in that position. Maybe at an individual level, when you look at the system levels, the individual level, state level, international level, maybe at an individual level, through his experiences, he's been an ambassador in this continent, I think, for 3 countries, Kenya being one of them, Zimbabwe, Uganda in his past. He has a long history serving as an ambassador and in foreign ministry in the U.S. So maybe his experiences would perhaps influence how he decides on some of these things. But outside of that, the U.S. foreign policy on Africa still remains. And at the end of the day, it does not matter who they've placed there. Is it serving their interest? And that is the bigger question. So whoever they put there, their interest must be served and has nothing to do with now this person is here, so it will be better for us. They'll always advance their own foreign policy, and that is the core of everything they do in their best interest.
Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. Several issues you have raised there, Miriam. It is their interest and only their interest alone. The block-to-block barter trade, those could be mitigational circumstances to mitigate a situation that we have in Africa. But East or West, I think we are faced with a very dangerous scenario coming forward, Miriam. We can't sit here pretty and fail to talk about it. We have to talk about it as Africans. Is it time for us to seek redemption and ask them, please, cancel this thing, let's start afresh? Because some of the debts in Africa are unmanageable, very unmanageable. When you look at the economy by GDP, per capita income, and so on some of the African countries, you ask how long will it take for them, for example, Somalia, to pay back? How long will it take? So time has come for a review of all these international agencies like IMF, World Bank. They should also have a review capacity of changing their draconian laws of the Bretton Woods departments that it said you lend, then you come and harass, drop the ratings of a country, make it a country where every plane, when it touches the airport of any country, it is bringing corruption, or it should be seized. So for me, I believe Africa remains with a tough question. What do they want to do? Is the toughest question. Which way to go is another tough question. How do we go is another tough question. And when shall we begin going is another one. So I have put all those together. They will all put us in a situation. Yes, they will put us in a situation. Yes. I want to put him online. Yes. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Africa. Thank you. Kwaheri. Asante sana, Miriam. Shortly I will see you. Usitoke hapo na kuja. Na kutumia kwa simu.
All right. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you. We'll see you on Saturday. On Sunday. Let's finish with the viewers first. I will see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.